So there are literally 1,000 reasons why I waited to actually review this monitor, and one of the biggest reasons, of course, as you guys know, is supply chain issues. I shouldn't say any more about that because it's probably frustrating to everybody, but during the Black Friday holiday, this Samsung G70A was available and the price was fantastic at $649. But I am glad I waited because there are some things that didn't quite sit right with me when I first unboxed this guy. And we're going to be covering that today and whether or not I think this is worth the money you're going to spend when you pay full price $899 for this bad boy. So right before we get into the specs, you guys, I want to talk to you a little bit about the channel. We have a fantastic channel built out for you with tons of playlists, tons of videos around gaming monitors, gaming accessories, gaming gear, and it's all broken down for you on that home channel. So go click to that home page, check out those playlists, and while you're there, click subscribe and like this video. Okay, let's get into it, you guys. If you've watched other videos on this Samsung G70A, you probably know all about it. It's a Gsync monitor. It is 4K in resolution, 144 hertz capable, console ready, AMD FreeSync Premium, and of course it has HDMI 2.1. And if you were able to get your hands on it during the Black Friday holiday, you paid $649 instead of $899. Well, most people would conclude with those types of specs and the fact that, of course, it is a beast of a monitor made by Samsung that it should compete with the LG GP950s of the world. But I want to dive in deeper because I don't think it's all pretty straightforward. So let's jump into the specs, let's jump into the unboxing, let's talk about the menus and setup, and then of course we'll get into some real world gameplay. So the usual cables come with this bad boy. Of course, you get your power cable, you get your HDMI, you get a display port, and then you get a nice black stand, you get a nice black pedestal. They do include a USB-B, and then the power cable that comes with it has a very long extension on it, probably about 12 feet of actual cable, so you can hook this up pretty much anywhere you'd like. It comes in a recycled box. It actually kind of looks poor on initial inspection, but once you dive in a little bit deeper, you do notice you get some mounting options. So if you have a VESA mount, you do have an additional adapter that comes with it to be able to mount. You do get an RGB cover that gives you some cool LED effects on the back of the panel itself, which leads me to talk about the aesthetics of this monitor. The physical stand itself is pretty sweet. It's very sleek. The back of the monitor, it's very spaceship-like, new age modern, if you will. And at the bottom of the stand, they give you this little rubber tie that ties all of your cables together and manages them down the back of the actual stand. I don't know what else to call it. It's kind of flimsy, but when you stuff a bunch of cables in there, it actually works. Some notable mentions would be the fact that, of course, this tilts, height adjust, pans, and rotates for you. Although I've not really found a real purpose for a 4K resolution monitor to be rotated into portrait mode, it is there just in case you ever need it. And just for you guys who want to know the aisle on the back, of course, this guy has your two HDMIs. It has DisplayPort, it has USB-B, two USB 3.0s, of course, your AC adapter input for power, and the almighty 3.5mm headphone jack. Now, I went ahead and calibrated this bad boy in a pretty dark room, I have to say, and I used the Spider X Pro to do so. And of course, the results were actually amazing. Much like the agile splendor of that Acer Nitro XV282, this bad boy hits 100% of that sRGB scale, 79% of NTSC, 84% of those Adobe RGB colors, and then 88% of the DCI-P3 scale. So I think that actually comes in a little bit above both the Gigabyte M28U that we reviewed in the past, and of course the Acer Nitro with their Agile Splendor. And I will say that with the local dimming off, the gray uniformity was pretty rock solid, but with that local dimming on, it did seem to obscure that gray uniformity just a little bit. Now, there are some menu features within this monitor that I absolutely love, but I have to tell you, if you bought this monitor or if you're going to buy this monitor, there is an update process you need to do out of the box, and that will require that you flash a USB drive and plug it into the back of the monitor and do the software update within the menus. Now, getting into the actual menus of the monitor itself, it has some pretty good features built in. There are some downsides though. Now, it has your standard menu options like you would find on most monitors. The one issue I did run into though is when adaptive sync is on, it becomes problematic. It locks down menus such as your pixel overdrive and other settings within the menu itself. And when I did test out that local dimming feature, it does add a level of brightness to the monitor, almost like you're giving max brightness to the monitor itself. It's actually quite useful in my opinion, but one feature this monitor has that others don't are these 3 buttons down here to the left of the joystick. And that's gonna give you 3 presets that you can quickly access as you're playing games and switch between if you have different settings for each thing that you do. Now, as far as I can tell, when HDR is turned on, you get 2 settings. You get standard and dynamic HDR settings. It does lock down a lot of menus within that monitor, but it does give you access to color, contrast, and a few other simple calibration tools. But it tends to keep your pixel overdrive kind of set to what you had it previously. And it does lock down the black level adjustment that I seriously love. And if I'm not acting excited enough, it's honestly because at this point in my process of breaking down and testing this monitor, I didn't see anything that would kind of lead me to believe that this would be a contender against something like the LG GP950, the Acer Nitro XV282K, or for that matter, the Gigabyte M28U. But I have to tell you, this is where I was wrong. I found some fantastic features in this monitor and some real performance that I think are better than any other 4K HDMI 144Hz monitors I've tested. So let's jump into those motion settings, starting with Blur Buster, and then we'll get into some gameplay where we can actually test real world performance rather than just a bunch of synthetic tests that don't really mean anything until you get it home on your desk and actually plug it into your graphics card. I'm going to do my best here to power through this and show you what I found on this Blur Busters test because I want to get into the gaming. So let's just jump right in. So here on the standard motion testing, I'm looking at bottom frame, of course, is skipping along. That's the lower frames per second. That top frame holding solid. Middle frame, we do see a bit of overshoot. Bottom frame, a little bit of overshoot. And that top frame is looking really good at 144 Hertz. No overdrive, no artifacting, no smearing, no ghosting, nothing happening here. And then world motion blur, we see this kick up into high gear, 144 Hertz on the bottom, 144 frames, I should say. And the world is looking really good. It's panning nicely. In this first pause, we do see a bit of smearing happening. It's not really bad. It's this little bit of ghost in motion blur that happens within games sometimes. And even on that second pause, we're getting a bit more ghosting, but to the naked eye, it actually looks really, really clean. And I'm gonna slow this down for you. You can see at half speed, it actually looks fairly decent. It is skipping along a little bit, so, you know, I'm a bit worried, but not too worried at this point. So we're going to jump into this pixel overdrive test here. And of course, as always, I like to start on the standard setting, the lowest setting, and then work our way up. So that's what I do. I go ahead and change to standard here, give it some time, let it rotate through. And then of course we get one pause. And on that pause, we see on that top frame, we see some ghosting, see a little bit of ghosting on that middle frame, and then a teeny bit on the bottom frame, which of course is the lowest frames per second. So on this normal pixel overdrive, we're not seeing the best performance. So let's kick it up to the middle setting, the faster setting, and see how it responds. We're seeing that top frame get just the same amount of ghosting as the previous setting, the standard. That middle frame per second actually looking much better. And to the naked eye here, it's not looking fantastic, but I don't notice any crazy amount of stutter. There's just that teeny bit of ghosting, which tells me that in game we could see a bit of smearing. So of course that leads me to believe that the extreme setting might be the best overall setting for pixel response rate. And let's dive in and find out. So zoomed in and pausing, we're actually seeing more issues here with this extreme setting. It's not actually doing a better job. And I slow it down to even half speed here. And as I look, it looks about the same as standard and faster. But I have to say that all three of these combined performed very similarly. So leave it on like the normal or faster setting. There's no reason to go up to the extreme. I do want to check out their MBR setting, which of course introduces that strobe feature. I want to see if the extreme MBR actually does give us a benefit here. Just so you know, MBR means motion blur reduction. It introduces a strobe to basically make each frame respond faster in between switches. You know, and we saw a little pause there and it didn't look bad, but in my opinion, it adds a bit of artifacting. You kind of get that black border around the UFO. It doesn't really look that great, but I still don't see the benefit. It looks smooth, but I also notice artifacting from it that I don't like. So the first test we have set up here is actually just to test out using DisplayPort the 4K 144 Hz Gsync capability with overall motion, seeing if we get any screen tearing, what the motion is like, if we get any motion blur, artifacting, playing some first-person shooter style games. So of course I went in and tested Warzone and then, you know, the brand new Vanguard. You know, and there's something to be said about the actual graphics here. The purples and the blues really stick out. I mean, they pop. That neon on the dress that she's wearing here is just a beautiful looking color, and the blue of the water is a nice aqua color with a good gradient to the mix. I mean, I couldn't ask for a color pop like this from any other monitor. And if you know Samsung TVs, I just have to pause here, because if you know Samsung TVs, one of the best things about them that they bring to the table, obviously this isn't QLED, but is that vibrancy and that color pop. So you know when Samsung puts their hardware on a panel that may or may not be made by them, that's what they're going to bring to the table, is their knowledge around TVs. And you can really see it here in that color pop. So this is actually a great interaction here. I'm busting out on top of roof here, and I see this guy kind of hiding behind a ledge, and I'm able to pin him down. I'm able to get him behind the ledge and hide. And then I kind of take this turn around the corner and go behind the back of the building and really make out his character extremely well as I do that. And I'm about to take him out and jump down the building, but because of the good color and contrast of this monitor and great motion capability as I'm moving and making adjustments real time, we're talking a couple seconds that this is happening, I'm not seeing any screen tearing. I'm not seeing some weird smearing going on while I'm doing this. But last interaction, I'm making my way up these stairs here. I'm being real cautious because I know there's somebody else hunting me over here. And that was a whole 90-degree turn. This guy's dropping from the top of the actual building here. And as he lands, I pause. And there's a teeny bit of motion blur here within the gun itself, but his character is spot on. I see him, I know I'm going down. He's got the jump on me because I was turned to the side when he dropped down. And there's no artifacting, no screen tearing, no smearing, nothing funky going on. The game is performing flawlessly on the monitor. This is how it should be, you guys. But enough of that, we have a new Call of Duty out, Vanguard, and I wanted to dedicate a little extra time in this video to this gameplay because I know a lot of you are going to be out there looking at Vanguard thinking, should I buy it or should I get this monitor because I play Vanguard? So I jumped into a bit of multiplayer and I found a few really good interactions that I think will break down the motion capability. Woo! First interaction here, you guys, and spot on. Look at this. I pause as I'm taking down this opponent and I'm kind of coming from left field. This guy sees me creeping up on him. I just get pinned right on him, but no issues whatsoever to be found in motion capability. So let's move on to the next. I'm ducking behind this truck. I'm taking down a lot of different people here and they're pretty far away. This is a very bright map, not a lot of dark spots to it. I'm able to make out fantastic contrast as I'm even shooting a little bit further away than just face-to-face interactions. And I'm getting headshots. I'm pinging these guys. Here it is, textbook, you guys. This next interaction here, I'm going to kind of speed around this corner, take a slide, and here we go. Surprise my opponent here. He has no idea I'm coming. I'm just getting straight beams on this guy and taking him out in a couple quick and easy shots. But that was a quick movement there with a slide, snag this guy right between the crosshairs and take him out. And that's really the story of this monitor on this game. And there's plenty more of that to show you. You know, those last 3 interactions are pretty scrappy. I've got a couple guys aiming at me. I've got to move real quick, make some quick adjustments, turn, aim, and take these people out. And the motion's just holding strong all the way through. Now, I do have one interaction here where there was a bit of close-up action going on, and I did see a bit of ghosting. It's nothing crazy. I've got these 2 guys pinned here in their spawn, and I'm slowly trying to creep up on the door, and this guy jumps out from behind the door, and I have to make some quick decisions here. And here we are, I'm pausing on this scene because you can see I've lost pretty much everything besides his gamer tag above his head. I don't know if I want to call it motion blur, but definite smearing happening here. But that's okay, I'm able to get my bearings, go around the container, take out his buddy who's also staring out, and complete the job. Then of course I'm going to pause on this last bit here because you would think it's double vision, if not triple vision, and you would be wrong. Because this is actually a triple kill. I took out 3 guys aiming down sights. They didn't even know I was coming. I put this on here, pure for sport, just for you guys to check out. But took all 3 of them out really well. Motion handling, fantastic. Clarity, fantastic. And that's what I have to say about this particular test. It was solid. So I could talk all day about Call of Duty and motion-based games and first-person shooters and how well this thing performed because it was fantastic. But I want to get into something that I haven't quite tested before, and it has to do with display stream compression. Now, if you are somebody who does want to test out HDMI for whatever reason, it does actually give you the same exact calibration capability as DisplayPort within the monitor menus. It doesn't leave anything grayed out that DisplayPort doesn't have grayed out. And of course, for this test, I did turn on HDR within the Windows settings, and each game that I used, I turned on HDR. First things first, I jumped into Metro Exodus, and here you guys, I had to really dial in the settings to get that motion right. But once I got it there, once I got that fidelity right and that motion down, this game was perfect. I mean, as always with HDR on, we're just getting beautiful, beautiful reflections in that water. We're getting a fantastic sunrise here. The skyline is looking amazing. The clouds have that deep color. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna test side by side HDR and non-HDR. And again, this is on HDMI 2.1. So I'm almost expecting a little bit different results than DisplayPort, but not by much. I try to turn down that brightness. I take that local dimming, I turn it off. It brings it back to a bit of normal, although it is a bit more gray than I would like. And then I take the contrast down. And if you don't know what contrast does, it actually lowers the brightness of your white level. So that's actually gonna help a bit here when you have this higher brightness and this blown out display. Bringing that contrast down should help you. But it really doesn't do enough to compete with HDR. And we see that when we compare them side by side. The water is somewhat of a blue, blown out picture on SDR, whereas on HDR, you get nice detail as a dark, oily water like it's supposed to look. In SDR, that light pole is gone. The tree is gone. The detail that can come out from different objects within the map itself are lost. They're just lost on SDR. And the last thing I'll mention on this game is the fact that this monitor has 2 HDR settings. It's standard and dynamic. And what I noticed was dynamic just made things a little bit brighter, whereas standard was a bit more toned down. Now, I play a lot of Back 4 Blood, and I have to say that my experience on this monitor, all in all, has been fantastic. Actually, a lot of the black level performance issues that I had, the overall contrast and shadow detail that I've experienced, or lack of shadow detail that I've experienced with other monitors, this one tends to fix in dynamic HDR. Going through this gameplay, you guys, I had a really good experience. I did use a controller, an Xbox controller on this. However, I did also test it out on keyboard and mouse. And what I'll mention is through HDMI, it was a bit spongy using that controller. It was a little slow. The input lag wasn't the best, although I have a feeling that if I didn't have that low input lag on, it would be much, much worse. Now, maybe this is the game and not the actual monitor, but we can do a couple pauses here and I'll find one for you guys. We're actually getting some screen tearing going on. Gsync is on. We're actually getting, like 100 frames per second. Maybe it's a quick dip in frames because of the game and the performance overall. We are in 4K, of course, HDR, so it is taxing the graphics card quite a bit. But you can see here, there is some actual very noticeable screen tearing here. But it only happened in this game, no other game. Now, it did take away because of that screen tearing issue, but again, it's very exclusive to this game, and all other titles that I played were really good. So here's my control for Metro Exodus. I did want to test it from DisplayPort using 4K HDR, 144 Hz, G-Sync on and enabled. Testing that out in Metro Exodus, everything else is just as it was through HDMI. But I will mention to you that the overall input lag, both keyboard and mouse and controller, were better over DisplayPort. So whatever technology they're utilizing or whatever they're restricted to through HDMI, the input lag wasn't as good. So that leads me to Back 4 Blood, where we saw this infamous screen tearing. And here we are on DisplayPort. And DisplayPort actually presents some of the same issue. You can see it up here in the top left. Now, DisplayPort isn't as bad as HDMI was. I was actually able to pause quite often in HDMI and see that screen tearing. So overall performance with HDMI 2.1 versus DisplayPort HDR 4K in these particular games, well, in this specific game actually, Metro Exodus did not have the same issue. DisplayPort is maybe 3 to 5% better because there's less screen tearing happening, but I want to let you guys know that there's a fantastic channel built out for you guys. Go to the Techccessory homepage, go check it out. There's a lot of playlists built for gaming monitors, gaming accessories, gaming gear. There's something there that you'll find that you'll like and enjoy. And of course, while you're there, hit the subscribe button. So without further ado, let's jump in, you guys. I want to start with the downsides and some things that I didn't really like about this monitor. Jumping in, the first thing that I don't really like about this monitor compared to similar monitors like it is the fact that it locks down the menus quite a bit when you change settings. Now, the second is probably the most apparent because you guys all watched it just a second ago in the Back 4 Blood gaming, and what we saw was a bit of screen tearing, leading us to believe that this monitor and the G-Sync may not perform extremely well under that particular game, and it may show up in other games as well, although it's not fully expected in the other games, and I didn't see it in any other setting. I do have to mention it as a downside. And then the third, of course, is going to be related to that pixel overdrive. When we did the pixel overdrive testing on Blurbusters, I didn't see a massive difference from normal all the way up to the extreme. There just wasn't a huge enough difference between the three settings, and it would be hard for me to recommend one over the other. And I think a bit more attention to detail in that area would bring just even that next level of gaming experience for you guys. But that leads me into the three upsides, because it wasn't all bad for this monitor. I'm being hyper critical because I want you guys to know all the details. And that first upside for me actually is the fact that the pixel overdrive, regardless of how it performed over all three settings, was fantastic and very good despite the lack of adjustment within those settings. It actually performed well, not only in game, we saw it in all the first-person shooter games, it actually performed pretty decent in the Blurbusters testing. And that leads me to the second upside, which of course, correlates to some of the downsides, which is the G-Sync performance. It's something that I've been absolutely missing when it comes to the Gigabyte M28U. Yes, the Gigabyte M28U does work with G-Sync, but the fact that Samsung went a further step and just got that certification from NVIDIA actually matches up extremely well in first-person shooter games. We saw it in Warzone, we saw it in Vanguard. The motion was spot on, and regardless of how Back 4 Blood performed, it was fantastic when it mattered in first-person shooter games. And the third upside is the fact that it just has features galore. I mean, features. Full adjustment of the stand, pivot, rotation, pan, cable management, tons of ins and outs, RGB color, a fantastic looking back panel. It has tons of actual customizations and personalizations when it comes to settings. You get 3 customizable quick access settings on the monitor. It just has tons of features built And that's not something that you get on every single monitor. Some of them, to cut costs, they really cut out those features. And Samsung did not on this one, and you will not be disappointed with the added features and benefits you get here above just the raw performance. So that leads me to talk about the actual recommendation. I've reviewed quite a few monitors over the last month or two, especially in the 4K 144 Hz HDMI 2.1 category. Specifically the Acer Nitro and of course the Gigabyte M28U. And my recommendation here, you guys, is go out and get one of these. Don't look any further, okay? This guy beats out the Acer Nitro. It beats out the M28U in pretty much every performance metric that matters. And unless all you play is Back 4 Blood, which I doubt it is because there's only about 30,000 people playing at any given time, then this is the monitor for you. Whew. I say that because as soon as I hooked it up, I literally couldn't stop playing on it. And I went back to my Gigabyte the other night and I was frustrated. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys because I was frustrated. It's still a fantastic monitor, but it just didn't perform the same way. And the expectation level just went up for me the next level as soon as I started playing on this Samsung. And I know there's been some ups and I know there's been some downs, and you guys are gonna comment all about it down below. And that's what I hope for, is so we can have a discussion. So comment down below if you feel otherwise, if you agree, or if you just have any other input that you want to put in on this monitor, you guys. But I had a great time breaking this thing down. I spent a very long time tearing it apart and benchmarking it, but I do have plenty of more videos coming out on this guy. I'm actually going to test it out on my 5700 XT. We're going to test out some 4K gaming, see how well that performs, because I haven't done that before on an AMD 5000 series or 6000 series for that matter, and I want to see how it stacks up and how this performs with a lower end GPU. I'm also going to be testing it out on the Series S that I have back here using HDMI 2.1. So if you want to see those videos, go to the homepage, hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, all notifications, and then I'm going to put a playlist up here in the corner as we wrap up this video. It's going to showcase all of the monitor reviews that I've done in the past, so you guys can click that playlist and move on to the next video. So without further ado, you guys, I appreciate you watching the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.